All right, guys, let's talk about the Tiger Woods documentary. They released the second part of the two-part documentary on HBO Max. Trey, you have all the opinions, so we're going to start with you. Tell us what you thought.
So I enjoyed the first part of the documentary, which is also our most viewed video up to this point. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. We're hoping the second part video is really good as well. So
three people looked at it.
Yeah, three, maybe a fourth person. Who knows?
Okay.
So this picks up around 2008. When he won the U.S. Open with no ACL, two cracked bones in his knee, and it kind of shows, almost like a montage deal. Actually, before that, where he's just winning, just nothing but winning, and it shows that part, and you kind of start to see his body start to break down. As they kind of said on there, they're showcasing him at the peak of his powers. He's unstoppable on the golf course. He's a role model. He's making more money than he knows what to do with endorsements and obviously with Nike. And then they start showing where he's going to Vegas with Jordan and Barkley. And they kind of start talking about how Tiger's a little bit awkward. And Jordan tells a story of he's with Tiger and Barkley, and Tiger asks him, "Hey, what do I say? If I'm going to if we want to get some girls over here, I want to talk to a girl, what do I say?" And Jordan goes, "You tell him you're Tiger Woods. Like, you don't have to say anything other than that." But I think that showed, and I had pretty strong opinions in the first documentary about the way he was raised and the decisions that his parents made for him really hurt him socially. And then we start to see, in my opinion, how we see a lot of those issues really come out and come to fruition. So, they kind of show where the club hosts are always bringing girls over to them. So think about that scene, right? You're Tiger Woods and the hosts are just bringing girls to you. And the National Enquirer actually started picking up on what was going on, and they picked up on an affair with Mindy Lawton, which was a hostess at a breakfast restaurant that him and Elin used to go to, right? So then they actually show some video of him meeting her, like, in a parking lot. They go to a parking garage. They're in a car. So it's just like he's starting to kind of come unchained a little bit, right? Like, just, wherever he can go, wherever he can get it, he's doing it. And then they get into his affair with Rachel, you could tell. And she says a couple of interesting things where she said, they would hold each other, and then he would sit on the floor and he would eat cereal and watch cartoons. So you start to see these things where, because of his my opinion, because of his childhood and him not getting to do those things that you would typically get to do as a child, all of a sudden he's acting out as a 30-year-old or whatever it is. So then it gets into the downfall, which I'll kind of pause because I want to get y'all's thoughts on this, and then we can go through some of the bullet points of the downfall. But I thought they did a really good job of showing the rise and then showing kind of what happened and where it started to fall. But definitely my opinions are a lot of these issues came back out because of how he was raised. And again, the decisions that his parents made, right or wrong, my opinion is that you have to let a kid be a kid, right? Would he still become Tiger Woods as we know him? I don't know, but I just don't think it's fair until a kid can at least get to a certain point. If your kid becomes 12 or 13 and he's going, "I don't care about anything else, I just want to play golf," then you should feed that. Versus he never really had a chance, and when he showed any signs of being interested in anything else, they moved him away from that. So obviously that's my opinion. Everybody has a different opinion on this, I'm sure, and certainly had a parent. But what did you guys kind of think about it?
So it doesn't surprise me that's the path he went down. And I think the people around him are as much to blame as Tiger himself, right? Michael Jordan bears some of the brunt of the blame too. He had an opportunity to be a mentor and, model the right behavior, and he chose not to. I'm not judging them. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? But I think that, Tiger watched the people around him who he idolized and ultimately began to follow in the same footsteps. I think also, your points are really valid, Trey, in the sense that he didn't get a chance to mature and grow up. He had a very awkward childhood. His parents were controlling. He didn't really get to be with a lot of girls. And then when he realized suddenly he could be with any girl that he wanted to, he sort of let loose. It's I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but it's not like the mindset here isn't like it's hard to blame the guy, because it like he took it way too far and it was totally inappropriate, and he treated his wife completely inappropriately, and then he should be held accountable for that. But it's also, you got this guy that suddenly like went from I can't be with anybody, now I can choose to be with everybody, and I just think he struggled. So I just think he was just ultimately an underdeveloped human being, and I feel bad for him. And he fell into the trappings of being famous and rich, and wasn't equipped to deal with it. What's interesting is that you see in the NFL and the NBA, they actually have programs for people that are coming into the league specifically to help teach them what to look out for and how to handle their wealth and their newfound fame. I don't think that exists in golf, and certainly not to the level that Tiger was at. So
Yeah.
I think it's certainly a cautionary tale. I don't know that it's one that is going to play out through a lot of people because of the unique circumstances, but it's certainly sad. And I think it makes his comeback that much more compelling.
Yeah. Tony, what did you think? And just for the audience, Tony watched this documentary, and I would say, and I think you would say the same thing. You know who Tiger Woods obviously is, just from following general sports, but you're not somebody that would watch golf every weekend. So I think it's a good perspective from somebody, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. Is this documentary for everybody? Obviously anybody that knows Tiger Woods, but I think you see a documentary like this, and especially, it's golf heavy. It's like, well, should I only watch this if I'm a big golf fan? So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like documentaries for the most part. I like biography stories. This isn't actually an autobiography because I don't think he had any part in what I watched. But the way I watched both of them back to back, so I had a day off and I decided to watch both of them so I could kind of join in this conversation. And you know what, he was reaching his heights right after we graduated high school, so I started watching news and paying a little bit more attention around that time. So I knew who he was, and I knew, how great he was and some of the stories. And then, when everything kind of fell apart, I, of course, heard about all that. But I mean, to me, and I always like to play kind of devil's advocate with these things, where I don't think it's a sad story. I don't think anyone should feel sorry for Tiger Woods, or if anything, like, and even the documentary kind of, it almost made it, except for that one guy that was like the family friend, it almost made it like, poor Tiger. Oh my gosh, poor Tiger. Like that one family friend said, he felt bad for Elin and the kids and that they had to do it. And then I think there was even an interview where people were asking him about it, and they were talking about, the Masters, your divorce, and something else. Oh, and your age or something, like, what's, how big of a role has either, and he completely was like, yeah, age. Like, it had, the divorce, it all boils down to he got caught. That's just what it was. Like, there's no remorse, no way. Yeah, he was raised pretty strict, but the dude was a man. Like, he can watch TV, he can watch the news, he knows right from wrong. Like, he just got caught. I mean, young people that get a mass amount of money and that are top of the game of whatever that game might be, or even if it is a game, just Hollywood in general, like, to be that high up and to have that money, you can do whatever you want. Like Chris said, I mean, like, to kind of be told by his parents you can't date any women, to having access to all the women. I mean, and he went wild. Like, of course he did. But, the main thing about the documentary was he got caught. Like, there would be no apology video. There would be no, oh my gosh, all this stuff, had he not got caught. So he got caught.
So you're right.
How many times have we seen that story?
So you're right. I agree with you, Tony. I totally agree with everything that you were just saying. I think the one thing, though, that does make it, in my opinion, at least tragic, is that he was basically raised in a bubble, and he was the greatest athlete in his sport, right? So I think it's so unique. He was raised to think he was special. He was raised and programmed to believe that he was better than everybody else. And so I think it was ridiculous for any of us to think that he was going to make normal choices and live a normal life. So to exactly what you said, Tony, of course, once he had access to everybody, he was going to take it all. He wanted everything. And he probably wouldn't have apologized until he was caught. But maybe getting caught and the humiliation that he had to go through is what allowed him to finally begin to mature it was certainly probably not on the stage and level of transparency that he would have preferred. But if that hadn't happened, it would have continued. So I think it's a very weird paradoxical situation because you're right. He is a man. He needs to own up and own his own decisions. But I don't think his maturation process would ever have kicked in until he was caught. And so
Yeah.
I think it's one of those kind of weird catch-22 situations for him that he needed to go through to humble him in some way. And to be honest with you, even after it happened, I still think it took him a while before he truly was humbled. I think it was not winning on the course that humbled him more so than the exposure of all the women. I think that to me is what led to that. Now, he was a worse player for it, but he was a better human being for it. And that's the trade-off.
So
we talked about that trade. Go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just gonna say. So do you think he's been converted? Like, do you think he's completely different now? Like 100%, he's flip-flopped?
Not 100%. No, I don't think he's 100% flip-flopped. I think there's still a risk it could happen again. I think it's less likely. Maybe it has happened. I'm sure he'd be more careful if he was going to do it this time. He knows what got him caught the first time. I'm sure he's not going to do it. But so I don't know that I would say he's a convert. But what I will tell you is that if you look at Tiger Woods post-scandal, especially lately in the last 2 or 3 years, he's more relaxed on the course. He's on being a father. He just is more chill. There's a story about Elin where Elin ran out of one of the tournaments that he won and was so excited. And you've seen, as you guys have, and Tony, I know you don't watch as much golf, but you do, Trey. When the guy wins the tournament, the wife usually runs out, right? Gives him a big hug and a kiss. So Elin was trying to do that with Tiger, and Tiger like completely brushed her off. It's like, we expect to win. Like, this is business, right? So there's no emotion. You look at it in Tiger now, and Tiger is like bursting with emotion when he wins. He appreciates it. He understands how special it is more so than he ever did before. So it's that we talked, Trey, when we're talking about the first part of the documentary, I was saying that I don't think Tiger would have been Tiger at the level he was unless his parents did what they did, right? Right or wrong. Like, they helped mold and create the greatest golfer that ever lived, in my opinion, right?
Sure.
But now he's chosen to become a better human being. So Tony, going back to the point that we were just talking about, but guess what you have to give up? To be a better human being, you're not going to be as dominant of a golfer. That just is the reality of it. You can't have it all. You can have anything you want. You can't have everything that you want. And he's choosing to be a father first before, he's just maniacally focused on winning on the golf course. And so to me, I think that's a cool arc to his story and his character development. Now, whether you forgive him for the indiscretions that he did on Elin, that's up to each individual, right? I think that he has to live with that, and there's guilt that probably he's going to live with the rest of his life, and that sucks for him, but he deserves that guilt because he brought it on himself. But I do think it's a fascinating journey for him to go down. So to me, it's a multi-layered story.
What did you, Tony, I want to go to you for a second. What did you think about the apology?
I mean, it was like I think about most apologies for anything from anyone in the media. They have to do it. Their PR people are telling them they have to do it. They don't want to do it. They don't, in my opinion, and like, I don't know, none of us know him personally, so we can give our opinions till the cows come home, and it doesn't matter. Like, he was told he needed to make an apology. Like, even the way he talked about it was even kind of like, I'm sorry all you guys were putting so much into me and y'all thought I was the best and I let y'all down. Like, then he went and hugged his mom or whatever. Like, it's how many people have we've seen do that on the news? Most average people, right, have an affair, whatever. Obviously not a million girls, even if they were with a million girls, are going to come out because it's not followed the same way. I think one of my favorite parts was the guy from the National Enquirer that said it's human nature for people to want to see the best fall. Like, that's all they want. They want the king to fall, the queen to fall. Like, so when that happens, it's a feeding frenzy of, I mean, a lot of these girls, who knows? A lot of these girls might have just for the hell of it came out and said, yeah, we don't know if that's true or not. And, on the bad end of that for him, the way Rachel, you could tell was talking about, you kind of did feel like he did love her. It was an escape from what was expected from him, what was what was normal. He got to do whatever he wanted. You know, you were talking about eating the cereal and doing all that. And then when he got caught, kind of that same thing where like when the girlfriend read that letter that he wrote her, it was almost like his camp came and was like, look, this is what we got to do. You got to cut ties with everyone. You're going to go to a sex rehab facility. We're going to do a public apology. Like, I find it, and this is just me, but I find it so interesting that people actually show up to that people probably actually tuned in to Golf World or ESPN or wherever that aired on to actually watch him. Like, who the fuck cares? You don't know this guy. For that, 99% of the population, he owes you nothing. He doesn't owe you an apology. Like, he fucked up. He got caught. If anything, you're kind of like, damn. Oh, and another part, DL Hughley that was on stage and said, America basically find out Tiger likes pussy. That was the gist of this documentary. Like, he gambled and he lost in a sense, but at the same time, I asked Chris, I was like, do you think he's the GOAT? Because again, I don't know golf. So I know Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Arnold Palmer only because I drink that shit. Other than that, I don't know who anybody is. So,
right.
But Chris said he was, and I don't doubt that at all, because in my generation, that's the only name I really know. And Phil, a little bit about Phil, but I don't really know enough about him. So to have, what's the saying from Kingpin, to have the world in the palm of your hand and then you fucking piss it away or whatever. So yeah, it sucks. I think his game started suffering too, just because he's old, man. It happens, it happens to all athletes. Old in the sport, maybe not old, for having a 9-to-5 desk job where we get to just do whatever we want. But his apparently, according to this, his swing was so violent, like that kind of motion over and over again to a human body. Yeah, it's going to do some damage. That scene was hard to watch when he collapsed on the golf course. Oh my God. Like, my back even was kind of like, ugh, when that happened. Like, I enjoyed everything I watched. I kind of went off track, but yeah, to get back to the apology, they always have to do that. Like, if something happened to one of us, if something happened to one of us, we're not going to apologize on TV to anybody.
Right. So Chris, I want to, sorry. So I want to get your thoughts on the apology, which I think you just gave him, but talk about the apology a little bit. And then from your perspective, if you want to kind of talk about what happened after that. And the documentary actually ends pretty close to present day. So maybe just talk about the apology, and then from your standpoint, what you remembered after that.
Yeah, so I think his apology was trash. I think that it was, Tony, I think you're right. It was manufactured. It was, his agent told him it had to be done. A lot of what they did was scripted. But the problem is, you can do an apology and be genuine about it. And his was just trash, in my opinion. Even to the clothes that he wore, like the stiff shirt, overly starched, like it just looked awkward all around, right? It didn't look like somebody that was contrite did and like genuinely like understood the gravity of the mistakes that they had made, right? It was almost more like, it's your fault for putting so much faith in me, not my fault for making poor life decisions. He didn't have a problem cashing checks from sponsors that paid him the money because of the fact that people looked at him as a role model. And then the moment that he wanted to be able to make his own decisions that went against that persona, he didn't want to be held accountable for it. So, I mean, I was pretty disappointed. So you were actually, Tony, making fun of people that watched it. I watched it. It was actually when it happened, it was kind of a big deal. I watched the news press. It was short. It wasn't a big deal, but I remember like actually walking away thinking how disappointed I was in him because of that. And I think, look, in Trey, you and I have worked together in the corporate world. You make mistakes, right? Stuff happens. It's not always about the mistakes you make. A lot of times it's about how you respond to those mistakes. And as bad as the mistakes were that he made, there was an opportunity there for him to actually establish himself more credibility than maybe he deserved if he had handled the apology and the follow-up a little bit better. Instead, he was standoffish. He was stiff and didn't come across genuine at all. And I think that was a huge mistake. And I think that aided in the downfall. There's one other thing you said, Tony, that was interesting. You said that, and I'm not sure if it was the National Enquirer or whoever said that everybody wants to see, right, the king fall. They do, but guess what? They also want to see the follow-up story, which is they want to see them rise again. And so you don't get that redemption story without the fall. So they kind of come together. I think that Tiger's fall, though, lasted a lot longer than it should have, because I think, honestly, he was pretty stubborn. I think it took him a long time to really mature and to get that level of humility that he needed to get to that next level. So I think after the apology, Trey, I just think it was a train wreck for him. There's just no way around it. It was an absolute train wreck. There was a tournament I remember watching where he never, ever wore sunglasses, ever, in a tournament. And he wore sunglasses for, I think, the first tournament, or first couple tournaments that he came back onto the course after the scandals. And, you know, the theory was that he was just embarrassed and he didn't want people to look, you know, to look him right in the eye. And he didn't want to have to like look other people in the eye. And I believe it. I think there's truth to it. You know, I just think he went through a lot of change. It just took him years and years to really fight through it. And then you add on top of that, the injuries, physical injuries he was dealing with because of how hard he pushed himself in training. It was just sad. It was a sad story, in my opinion, of what happened to him after. I think the other thing too that was interesting that you guys touched on, he might have been in love with Rachel, you could tell. Like, he truly might have been. It wouldn't surprise me if he thought he was, right? They probably talked to each other about how he was gonna eventually divorce Elin and they were gonna run away together. I'm sure there was some stuff like that was on there. And I think some of the other women were there just more for pleasure, not because he had a relationship with him. But he was growing up during that time. As crazy as that sounds, I think those are his teen years. Those are his college years that he never had. He was having those in his adult years. And that's what was happening before us. And so now what we see in a, you know, mid 40s Tiger is a Tiger that's finally gone through all the ups and downs, lived his life, and we're now getting to see a more mature, a more grounded, and a more humble Tiger. I'm sure he's still arrogant because he's Tiger Woods, but I don't know. That's my thoughts, Trey, on just what happened after the press conference. And then just for me in general, I think the press conference is total garbage. And in my opinion, when in his career.
Yeah, so I agree. I thought my notes say Tiger's public apology was bullshit. I don't think you need to apologize to the public. You know, you need to apologize to your family. You don't owe the public anything. And that's what that came across for, like, you know, I'm sorry I did this and I let you guys down. No, you let your family down, right? You let your kids down. You let Elin down. So I thought that was very misguided. I think Tony did a good job of talking about how that, you know, it's a corporate, you know, the machine made him apologize and made him do all those things, but it came across very disingenuous to me. And I also think to some extent, and I know, you know, you can't just, you know, walk around, you know, with everything on you know, that you think, but you should be who you are. Like, if that's who you are, then that's okay. But, you know, you got to own it. And I respect people that can, you know, we're all flawed in different ways, but when you understand it and you own it and you act within those boundaries, then you really don't have anything to, you know, you don't have anything to hide or to apologize about. So that was my takeaway. So a couple of quick hitting things that I saw that I didn't know that were really surprising to me. So Billy Payne, the chairman of the Masters, before the 2010 Masters, he like chastised Tiger. Like, we're disappointed. That's not acceptable. He's going to do better. So, and we kind of know the history of the Masters and, you know, racism and sexism and things like that. So I was blown when I had never seen that before.
Horrible decision by Billy Payne. He clearly had no context or awareness of like his place in history and Augusta National's place in history as it relates to minorities and women. Like, it's unbelievable that he felt he had the high ground in that conversation.
Who are you to tell me that I messed up? Right. That's my takeaway. So that was interesting. They talked about the story of him firing Steve Williams. You know, Steve Williams asked him if he could caddy for Adam Scott because Tiger wasn't playing. Tiger said yes, and then he called him at the last minute and said, if you caddy for him, or his people called him at the last minute, said, if you caddy for him, we're done. Steve Williams still caddied for him, and he got fired. And the more difficult thing for me was when Steve Williams said that he cut him off as a friend, and Tiger was in his wedding, and then it showed where he cut off one of his best not girlfriend, but friend that's a girl, cut her off also. So all of a sudden, Tiger's trying to do damage control, and he's cutting off these people that are his that are his friends, right? Not Nike and his relations people, his public relations and his publicist, like these people that are his friends. So that to me was a sign too that he just, at that point in his life, he just didn't get it, and then to some extent he still doesn't. That was rough. And then they showed where he got caught driving under the influence, kind of after the scandal, but not to that was rough. They had the video and things like that. And then my last note was, which I think is cool now, and you mentioned this earlier, he laughs now on the course. He jokes around. He's done those 2-on-2 tournaments with Phil, the Tiger versus Phil or whatever it is. Yep. And you can see that he actually, and again, Chris, you said this, where he appreciates the game of golf more, and he maybe started taking it for granted. He'll never be the same Tiger that he was, and he's had to adjust his game. But to see a human being, I think, and I'm not saying he was in pain back then, but you can tell, yeah, he's been asked to live a certain life, and now you kind of actually see him getting to enjoy his life a little bit more. I really enjoyed seeing that at the end of the documentary where, okay, he's laughing, he's smiling. And there was even a tournament where he was walking through and a guy had the picture of when he went to jail, the mugshot on a shirt. And he was like, Tiger, Tiger. And Tiger looked at it and he laughed. Like, the old Tiger never would have done that, right? Like, we're here for business, man. I'm not playing around. So I thought that was just a good human evolution for him. But I do think, and again, Tony, I don't think you're going to agree with this statement, but, I think it's kind of a tragedy, right? A lot of it's his own fault, but I think the way he was raised and things like that, I think that made it really, really tough for him. So anyways, those are my closing thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think this is a good conversation, and I'm sure there's going to be follow-up conversation that are worth having, but it clearly was a great documentary that caused a lot of really good discussion and reflection on things that people hadn't been thinking about lately as it relates to Tiger. So, all right, let's bring this one to a close and let's move on to our next topic, which is around the HBO Max movie Mortal Kombat.